Hello my beautiful friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about my 3 top foundations that are long-lasting, full coverage, and of course cruelty-free. Before I start reviewing and comparing the foundations, let's quickly talk about my skin. So I have dry skin that has some redness going on and also enlarged pores in this area around my nose and cheeks, because I used to have acne when I was younger, and also recently I had some severe breakouts. So I have some textured skin, and also under my eye area my skin tends to be very dry, so I have to be super careful with the products that I use, because some foundations dry out my under eye area, they crease and they kind of draw attention to the fine lines and wrinkles and kind of exaggerate them as well. So I have to be really careful how I use the product and the kind of products that I use. Another important aspect is also my skincare routine. I always make sure to really moisturize my skin to avoid any dry patches and flaky skin. And I always make sure that before applying any makeup on my face, my skin is properly moisturized, because throughout the day my skin does get dry and I just don't want the makeup to settle in the lines and in the dry areas of my face. Recently I've been really enjoying using my beauty blender over any brush, because it just gives me this flawless airbrushed finish. So yeah, that's just something that I wanted to mention before I start talking about the foundations. But yeah, let's get started. The first foundation that I'm going to talk about is the Kat Von D Lock-It foundation. This one is full coverage, it has a dewy finish, and I find that it works really well for my dry skin because it doesn't dry out my skin. I do need to make sure to set my face properly with a powder and a setting spray, especially under my eye area, because it does crease a little bit, but I have that problem with pretty much all foundations. When it comes to the wear, I did find that throughout the day my skin looks a little oilier than usual, so I just use a blotting paper to get rid of any excess shine, which is not a problem. Again, that's something I do with pretty much all foundations anyway. I'm currently using the shade 47 Light Neutral. It's also available in 44 different shades, which is a lot, and it retails for £28 for 30 milliliters of product, which I think is pretty great. Now I enjoy this foundation. It works really well for my dry skin. It does oxidize a little bit, so it can look a little orange on the skin, so you need to make sure to get the right shade. I do think this is a great foundation for those with dry skin. If you have oily skin, I'm not too sure whether this is the foundation for you, but other than that, I do think it's a great foundation and I can recommend it. Next up, we have the Becca Ultimate Coverage 24-Hour Foundation. This one is my favorite foundation at the moment because it matches my skin tone perfectly. I'm wearing this today as well, and I just really love how this foundation looks and feels on my skin, because it's quite hydrating, it doesn't dry out my skin, and the creasing is minimal under my eye area, and it doesn't cling onto my dry patches either. This one also has a dewy finish, and I make sure to set the foundation with a powder and a setting spray. Again, same with the Kat Von D foundation. And it just looks really beautiful and natural. Obviously, you can tell that I'm wearing makeup, but at the same time it doesn't look cakey or anything. Again, my skin does get oily throughout the day, so I use a blotting paper to remove any excess oil, but other than that, this foundation stays put and just looks really beautiful. Now this foundation is available in 24 different shades, so obviously the shade range is not that great, and it retails for £35 and you get 30 milliliters of product. So it's definitely more expensive, but I really like the glass packaging and the pump dispenser. It's just quite handy and definitely cleaner than the Kat Von D foundation. I'm currently using the shade Cashmere, which matches my skin pretty much perfectly. I also found that this foundation doesn't oxidize much, so you don't have to worry that you might end up looking orange or that the foundation might end up being too dark or anything. The last foundation that I'm going to mention is the Huda Beauty Faux Filter Foundation. Now this one is the latest addition to my makeup collection and I really like this foundation. It has a matte finish, which is something that I normally don't go for because I already have dry skin and I feel like a matte finish just makes my skin look even drier than it already is. But it works really well actually. I have to say, when it comes to minimizing my pores and evening out my skin texture, this one does an amazing job because it just blurs out my skin. It just looks really filtered, just like the name suggests. The only thing that I do want to mention with this foundation is that it does crease and dry out my under eye area, so I would always make sure that I use some powder to set my under eye area and also use a setting spray on top just to give it a more dewy finish afterwards and make my skin look a little bit more moisturized. This foundation comes in 30 different shades and it retails for £32 and you get 35 milliliters of product for that. I'm currently using the shade 150G Crème Brûlée, which is a little bit too light for me, but then again it does oxidize, not too much though, and I make sure to use some bronzer and contour just to make sure it matches my skin tone better, and it just works really well for me. I think that this foundation works great for all skin types, whether you have dry skin, combination or oily skin. Now if you have super dry skin, definitely make sure to properly moisturize your face before applying this product. So I'm going to do some quick swatches of the foundation so that you can see what the consistency and the shades look like. And I'm going to start off with the Kat Von D Lock-It foundation. It's in the shade 47 Light Neutral. And this is what it looks like. It's currently a little bit too dark for my skin tone, but in the summer it matches my skin pretty much perfectly. Next up I have the Becca Ultimate Coverage 24-Hour Foundation in the shade Cashmere. This shade suits my skin tone perfectly right now because I don't have a tan, and it also has a very similar consistency to the Kat Von D foundation. Then the last foundation that I'm going to swatch is the Huda Beauty Full Filter Foundation. As you can see, this one is the lightest one out of the three that I've tried, but it does oxidize and matches my skin tone. Because the foundations are full coverage and have a slightly thicker consistency than regular liquid foundations, they can look a little cakey on the face if you don't apply them properly. But for me, I use a beauty blender and it just works really well. I make sure not to use too much product on my face either, and yeah, it just works really well for me. So that's just something that I want to mention. Maybe you just need to experiment a little bit with the application, but once you've figured it out, I think they make your skin look really beautiful and flawless. That is it for my review. I know these foundations are on the pricier side, so let me know if you want me to do a review in comparison with more affordable foundations, and let me know in the comment sections down below what you want to see next. Now, if you enjoyed this video, definitely make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!